What's up, Slick Talkers? Welcome back. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Send Squared. Go to sendsquared.com to learn more today about the #1 hospitality CRM for hospitality professionals just like you. All right, Slick Talkers, welcome back. This episode features the one and only Susan Berry, who is the host of the Top Floor podcast, which is a top industry leading podcast in hospitality where you can learn so much from Susan and her guests. It's not just hotels. It's not just short-term rentals. It's all of travel, you name it. She's had a guest on the show to discuss it. So I am very excited. Susan started her show back in 2021. I became a big fan pretty much right out the gate when I met Susan, I believe either later that year, early 2022. And she's just been crushing it. She's got a lot of good insights. She's got a lot of great opinions. And her story from how she got into hospitality is pretty cool. And so, like I say in the beginning of this episode, it is long overdue that we recorded together. And so I was very honored and excited to have Susan to geek out about podcasting, about hospitality, and of course, just some things and opinions that we may have in the space. And it was just a fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. And now let's begin the episode. You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, Susan Berry, welcome to Slick Talk. This is, I say this on every episode, basically. For all my listeners who listen every week, I'm sorry, but this episode's been in the making, or should have been in the making, a long time ago. How are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be here. This is great. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, for the listeners who don't know or recognize Susan's voice, then you should, because Susan, you're the host of the podcast, The Top Floor. You're also the founder and CEO of Hive Marketing. So I would love to give the listeners a little context before we jump into the interview or the episode, because your show was the first, or one of the first podcasts I actually ended up listening to when I did go full-time, because I listened to No Vacancy, and I believe Fuel Hotel Marketing.
That was a good one. I don't think they're still making that show, but it was great.
It's changed. I Travel Boom or something like that. But anyways, it's definitely changed. Stuart's no longer there. It was a great show.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. But when I went full time and then started doing the network, that's also when I discovered you. So would love to know about your background and hospitality. And then of course your podcast, the Top Floor podcast, how that all got started. So Susan, without further ado, let's take it away and tell us where it all begins.
Well, I will tell you the fastest possible version of my life story. So I was born and raised in Panama City, Florida, and went to FSU in Tallahassee, where I worked in restaurants my entire 5 years of getting my bachelor's degree. And when I graduated, the restaurant group that I worked for asked me if I would run their catering company, thinking that this was like such a glamorous big girl job. I said yes. Huge mistake. No, it was fine. So I ran an off-premise catering company for about 2.5 years. Off-premise catering years are like 1 year of off-premise catering is 7 years of hotels. And then 1 year of hotels, like 7 years of normal life. So I ran an off-premise catering company for 46 years and did things like sleep in my car in between events. I had at one point, about an inch layer of baked beans that had sloshed out of a hotel pan in the trunk of my car. Like, it was a mess. It was crazy time. And so when my then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to move across country to Denver, Colorado, where you live now, I was strongly encouraged by my mom to look into that catering thing while I was figuring out what I really wanted to do with my life. I ended up getting a job as a director of catering at a hotel, and I spent 10 years as a director of sales and marketing for Starwood. in Denver, Washington, D.C., and here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I still live. And most of what I did for Starwood was open new build hotels. In those days, I don't know if it's still the case, but in those days, the director of sales and marketing was the first person to get hired because there would be a hole in the ground. So nobody could clean rooms or fix the elevator or whatever. But you could do a little bit of everything. So I got to do a little finance, a little HR, a little being the boss of everyone. It was awesome. Very exciting, high adrenaline, like lots of learning and super fun. And so I did 2 of those in rapid succession. I opened a Westin in the DC market and then a W here in Atlanta. And after doing 2 really quick, I was missing that adrenaline rush. And so in the spring of 2009, actually, 3 days ago, as of our recording day, I started my company, Hive Marketing. Height of the financial crisis, sure to be a disaster, but I figured that people were doing a lot of weird stuff then. So if it failed and I had to sort of go crawling back with my tail between my legs, that no one would hold it against me. So I started Hive Marketing 16 years ago, and the company has evolved a great deal over time. We've, focused on different things based on sort of where the market went, but our concentration now is business to business marketing and comms for the hospitality industry. So what that means is that rather than helping an individual hotel attract travelers and guests to stay with them, we help hospitality companies attract and work with each other. You would think that was enough, but clearly the adrenaline is really important to me. So 4 years ago, with Jonathan Albano, started Top Floor, which is our show very generally about the future of hospitality. And it is general on purpose because I am a curious and nosy person. I'm guessing we share that trait. And so I didn't just want to talk to people in hospitality, and I didn't just want to talk to people in marketing. I wanted to sort of cover the full gamut. So we do short-term rentals and trains and travel writers, anything and everything that can fit into hospitality, travel, tourism, we are interested in and we cover, which has never ceased to amaze me how many different jobs and how many different types of things there are to do in hospitality.
100%. And to kind of kick into a perfect segue, one of the things I've always said to at least like my younger nieces and nephews and people that are like, growing up and getting into high school, thinking about their future, getting their first job, starting to think about driving, right? Like they're getting started with life. And the number one question I always ask them was like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to get a job? What kind of career path do you see? And usually my nieces or nephew will give like, oh, I want to go into accounting for sports, or I want to go into this. And it's like, okay, great. Like they kind of got it figured out. But unlike me, I didn't have it figured out. And so I always kind of told people that if you don't know what to do after high school, you should go work at a hotel because of the wide range of experience and job careers you can go down, from finance and accounting to sales and marketing to security. Even you can go very
yes, and the real estate part, the finance part, like there's so many things that when I was working on property, I didn't even know existed. I think something else you should be telling your nieces and nephews, not to boss you around, is that the job that they're going to have for their career probably doesn't exist yet. So might as well do something that's fun. And working in a hotel is really, really fun.
Yeah, 100%. And especially if you don't travel a lot, it kind of gives you that feeling of travel without actually traveling. So
yes, broadens your horizons. Agree. Totally.
Yes. Well, Susan, I got to geek out with Steve Karen from the Modern Hotelier podcast. I've gotten to geek out with Josiah McKenzie from Hospitality Daily. Gotten to geek out with a couple of our friends in the podcasting space. And you mentioned you started Top Floor with Joe Albano, who for the OG listeners of Slick Talk may remember the Lodging Leaders podcast, which was such a good show. And Joe Albano also just has a great podcaster voice like you do. I wanted to give you that compliment before we recorded. And it was just like, yeah, you have a great podcaster voice. I listened to episodes and it's just like natural, good, clean, crisp sounding. So shout out to Joe and his team for editing your show, because I know they do the back end.
Listen, Jonathan went to the Berklee College of Music and is like the most professional and passionate sound engineer in the history of time. So anything that sounds good on Top Floor is 100% Jonathan.
100%. Well, he does a great job. You do a great job. I've learned some like editing, post-production secrets behind the scenes from you, but I'm curious. I want to ask this question because I don't think I got to ask Steve or Josiah this, and this can kick off into a bunch of other conversations that we kind of had planned. But, you started the show 4 years ago. You've learned a lot. The show has grown. You've passed 100 episodes that have been published that I got to see on Apple, and you've gotten a lot of good reviews. Like the success of the show is obvious, right? And you're not doing it full time. You're still doing your Hive marketing business full time outside of the show. What the question I want to ask you that I didn't get to ask Steve or Josiah is, if you, knowing what you know now, how it all works, how you like, what you don't like as a host, etc., what would you do differently if you had to start over today in today's world with all the podcasts that currently exists, with the equipment, the education, all the know-how, everything?
That is a really hard question to answer. I do things very similarly to the way that I did when we started. I will tell you what did not exist when I started, and that was ChatGPT. In fact, my episode with Josiah McKenzie that you mentioned, we recorded that right after the first sort of public debut of ChatGPT, when people were able to play with it and stuff. And so that is something that's really helped with the time commitment of the show in terms of doing things like summarizing episodes and helping brainstorm questions and stuff like that. That's been a huge time saver for me. I couldn't really go back in time and make it get here earlier, but if I could, I would, because that has really helped a lot. I think this is such a tactical and small thing, but something that I changed probably a year in was the number of reminders that I sent guests, both for prep calls and for the recording. I was having about a third no-shows. Isn't that insane to think about?
That's actually, it's high.
Yeah. And it was because I kind of felt like, I don't need to remind them that often. They've got it on their calendar. Nobody's just going to blow me off. Listener, everyone is going to blow you off. So we started doing much more frequent reminders and have a workflow with some, what I hope are at least mildly amusing email reminders and stuff like that. And that made a huge difference. It's such a small thing, but it really made a big difference. And then there's probably a third thing I would say, which is 90% of my guests come from pitches that I receive now. It wasn't the case in the beginning, but it certainly is now. And so having a way to quickly and easily respond to pitches and sort of quickly and easily decide if this is going to be a fit for you has made a big difference for us in terms of our pipeline of guests. We're recorded almost through the 200th episode right now. I think we put out 189 today. So we're pretty far ahead. And it's because I've got a really full pipeline of prep calls and pitches and, sort of people in the different stages of the process. Probably very boring for anyone listening to hear that stuff, but inside baseball wise, that's my thing.
Well, I just think, it was so fun. It's one of the things I don't get to talk about a lot on the show. Obviously, as you know, when you're the host of a podcast, it's very much the attention's on your guests, right? And I think for me, it's been exciting to have other podcasters in the industry on, specifically in our industry, because it is kind of a weird dynamic behind the scenes from guest pitches to monetization to content and conversations and scheduling and backend. And we're just talking about, if you don't know what to do after high school, go into hotels because there's so many jobs, right? But there's so many jobs behind the scenes of a podcast.
Yes,
when it was just me, when it was me just in 2018, it was hit record, barely edit. If I did edit, insert, intro and outro, upload. And now it's, we got 4 people behind the scenes, from show notes to scheduling to editing to video to clips to all the email to all the fun stuff. So anyways, it just becomes so much. And so I love asking the question to other podcasters on the show because I think the listeners don't get to hear about much of this stuff from our end on behind the scenes. And so
can I ask you a question? Because
yes.
I don't do video on my show. And that was a deliberate decision from the beginning because so many people that we approached to be guests, especially like in the first year and a half, were like, is this going to be on video? Like they were freaked out. And so we knew, or we thought that it would be much easier to get a wide variety and high quality of guests if we didn't require them to be on camera. Now, this was 2021 when we started, like right coming out of the pandemic, people were just getting used to Zoom and Teams and all that stuff. Did you always do video? And do you think it changes the nature of the show? That might not be the question I mean, but talk about video.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Hostfully. If you remember back in the beginning of the year, we did a industry report or an industry review of the Hostfully hospitality report that they do every year. And we had Frank on the show, who's on the Hostfully team, and he's changed his role a little bit in the Hostfully company. And he's going to be working on a lot of partnership stuff. And so that means I get to talk to Frank a lot. And so for the slick talkers out there, we decided we wanted to give you a better offer. We want to get rid of $500 for onboarding to Hostfully, and we want to give you access to Frank's demo link so that way you can schedule a demo to review the Hostfully platform. If you don't know what Hostfully is, by the way, they're a property management platform for hoteliers and short-term rental operators just like you, where you can manage your business and your short-term rental properties on their platform, directly integrate into the channels that you want to be on. And then, of course, make sure that your other vendors and technology partners are directly integrated with them as well. So use the code SLICK500 in the show notes, grab that link, book a demo, and let them know that we'll send you. If you don't do that, then I'll find you. Just kidding. But we're back to the episode with Susan Berry. No, 100% understand what you're asking. So to answer the first part, no, it's not always video. I first was just like you, only figured out audio. I, learned how to start a podcast through Gary Vee and Tony Robbins, Anchor.fm, $25 mic on Amazon. That was it. And then actually through the Fuel Hotel Marketing podcast guys, told me that they recorded on Skype. And so I was like, okay, if they record on Skype, I'm going to record on Skype. And they didn't do video. It was just audio kind of through like a speaker system in their office. And anyways, I loved the audio only piece because it was fun. Like you get to get creative with what people are listening to. You can add a certain sound at this certain timestamp. And it was fun to see if people caught it and like just see creativity you could have with it. It's different than video for sure. But I think when we added video during COVID, we never published a video. We didn't take YouTube or like other social media tools like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or TikTok, obviously. Never took advantage of that. But I do feel like for me, it changed the dynamic of the show in a better way because when I was doing just audio, we didn't have cameras on. It was like cameras off.
Oh, I have cameras on. We just don't use the video.
Yeah, see, it was on Skype, so I don't remember how the whole setup was in the beginning from like the lack of being able to get audio and video to work. But
people weren't used to being on video in those days. Isn't that weird? That wasn't that long ago, but it was quite different. Like I remember my first few Zoom calls, I would dial in on my phone so that I could like walk around my house and do stuff so that I didn't have to be stuck in front of the computer. And now I look forward to my Zoom calls every day because it's like how you see people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And it's crazy because I also think like 2018, you're 100% right. Zoom virtual meetings were not a thing. So even trying to figure out how to coordinate with guests was like, how do I get someone to record with me that's in New York?
Yes.
I'm in Oregon or right. Like I didn't even, So it's changed, but I like it. Just especially because I think what we've started doing with the video with all of our guests is just like, hey, this is content for you. Like we want this to be something you're proud of. I always tell my guests on the show, this is your episode and your show. It's not mine.
Well, listen, I never tell anyone that. So thanks for making me look like a jackass. Cool.
No, no, it's just, I believe the more fun and value the guests get from the show, the better off the podcast is. And
100%.
so, yeah, the video has just been a good asset to be, hey, here's a value add for you. You took the time to talk with me. I'm going to have give you the respect of giving you content, or, saving you time on posting content to promote it or whatever it is.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been a good change, but very fun stuff. I have a question in terms, so the best thing about podcasting, especially in our space, especially for as long as you and I have been doing it, anyone that's done it, I would say over 2 years probably feels this, is that you get to a point in your podcasting journey where your voice does become quite substantial, right? Where you have influence, you have pull, you have, maybe not influence or pull is the best word association, but you have some kind of authority with it. People look at you differently. They see you as
they take you seriously, not like you're 100%. A joke.
100%. It's very true. And so with that, you probably get told, or at least I say this, I have a bunch of secrets I'm taking to my grave, because people end up getting comfortable with you. They start telling you things, and then you hear about certain business deals that are happening behind the scenes. And then you hear about, the drama at a conference or whatever, right? You get to hear all the good stuff. And so I would love to know, one of the good stuff that I feel like I always get to hear is kind of where trends are going. Where is the industry from short-term rentals or hotels going? What are people really talking about? You get so inundated with the audiences at conferences or your own listenership, your email newsletter, all that stuff. So you kind of get multiple pulses. So I'd love to know from your perspective, what you hear on top floor, off the scenes, on the scene. What are the biggest topics or trends? I hate the word trends because of how lightly it's used, but what are the biggest things that you're hearing in your ecosystem that is super important for the world of hospitality?
I think where we sit right now, so we're in the second quarter of 2025. And if I had to say that there was one common theme among the hoteliers that I talk to, it is complete befuddlement. That nobody can point in a direction and say, this is for sure the direction that we're going. I think that there are lots of people who have come out bullish. Our industry, being hotels, has a tendency, I think, to err on the side of being overly bullish because they're afraid that they're going to create a panic. There are also lots of people who have come out as what I consider to be overly bearish. We're dropping forecasts across the board. We're headed for a recession, that kind of thing. So I hate to be wishy-washy. This isn't my stance, but the stance or the sort of threads that I've been able to pull from interviews with guests is that people are feeling very, very uncertain. And that's the time both when people make really bad decisions, but it's also the time when amazing new companies, technologies, alliances, partnerships, all those things are born. So my gut tells me that this time next year, we'll be talking about something that came out of left field that no one was expecting. Hopefully it's a positive.
I was gonna. You are reading my mind, because I was gonna say we have a morning show called Good Morning Hospitality, and we do a predictions episode every year at the end of in the beginning of the year, kind of covering okay, last year in December we see what did we hit, what did we miss on our predictions, and then January we run it back all over again.
I love that. I love those kind of shows.
It's a fun episode. It's light. It's a good conversation. But I am curious, if you were to do the same thing for yourself, what do you think the item out of left field would be? What would be a prediction?
Can it be a wishful prediction instead of a realistic prediction? I have two. I have maybe one that's realistic and one that's wishful. My wishful prediction is that a new brand of hotels will be born. And I said hotels, but I think I mean a new lodging brand will be born that reawakens people's imagination or re-engages people's imaginations the way that something like the W did when it first launched in the late 90s. Something that feels new and fresh and really exciting, and not sort of just like a retread of the same things that we've seen over and over and over again. Now, the likelihood of that, I mean, that's a very expensive and difficult proposition. So we shall see. But I know you know Annie Holcomb, and she and I've had this conversation before about how at some point this industry is going to have to become the lodging industry and not the hotel industry versus the short-term rentals industry. Like, they're going to have to merge.
Yes.
It's the smartest thing for consumers. So hopefully it's something like that. So that's my maybe wishful thinking prediction. And then my more realistic prediction is there has just been bubbling under the surface for so long tech debt that the industry needs to pay. Short-term rentals were able to sort of look at everything that the hotel industry did wrong and run fast and furious to great tech innovation. And it's time for hotels to catch up. There's so many amazing startups out there right now. And hopefully we'll get, are you going to go to high tech? Hopefully we'll get to see a lot of high tech. But I feel like there's probably something is going to emerge, or someone's going to rise to the surface that transforms the landscape there. I think that's pretty realistic.
Yeah, I agree with that one. And I think the short-term rental sector is also going to have to play a game of catch up now, because I think we've seen a slowdown in the innovation of tech.
Okay.
And I think all tech, and I want your opinion on this because I am avidly passionate about this, with the amount of capital, venture capital, private equity that's come into hospitality, not just on the real estate side, like get rid of that from the brands to the vendors, all the other sectors. We should not have the excuse of our softwares looking like they're built on 1995 dial-up internet.
It's pretty crazy. I do understand where that comes from, because there are too many stakeholders who have, like, the person who would be responsible for paying for an upgrade is not the person who benefits from that upgrade. So there's a lot of sort of murkiness behind the scenes in the stakeholders in the hotel business specifically, like who owns the real estate, who owns the flag, who operates the, that thing. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Okay, here's something else that just is unfathomable to me. And I swear, I think I'm smart enough to figure this out. But every time I try to think about it, I'm like, oh, I don't know, dude, we're going to move on. It is this. There are very few industries that employ more people than hospitality, number one. There are very few industries that fascinate people more than hospitality, even people who don't work in it, that are like just obsessed. Either it's with Michelin star restaurants or points chasing, or, whatever the thing. Yeah. And then there are plenty of brilliant innovators in the industry. So if those three things are true, how is it that travel tech is not the leading sector? Like, how is it that investment, VC funding in all of these businesses isn't astronomically out of the realm of, I can't even articulate this because it blows my mind so much. Like, what in the world is happening? There has to be an unlock there that if I figure it out, I'm not telling a soul.
Agree. But it's like you make such a great point. And my kind of thinking and question back to you is like, what is stopping an Amazon and Apple.com, or not Apple.com, Apple, or whatever big brand today that we see stopping from coming into our, and looking at our space and be like, wow, the tech is really fragmented. It's like, with the amount of capital some of these companies, especially on the technology side, have raised, the product isn't good. Like, we've seen companies that have like $200-300+ million in funding, and the product UI UX is god awful. I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna put that much into dev and R&D and all the other things, the product itself should be easy and beautiful to use. That's why Airbnb is successful. It's click, book. It's, very easy user face. It's very simple design outline. I don't know. I just feel like our sector, like, I know, but Apple, Amazon could look at this and be like, oh, we can do a better PMS.
Okay, they absolutely could. All of those big tech companies seem to have, or continue to be, dipping their toe in and not finding success. How is that possible? It's confounding. Maybe we should have a summit We should lock a door and just have all the podcast hosts get together and solve this problem.
All right, let's get all 50 of us.
Fantastic. Yes, we'll do it.
Into a room. Perfect. No, it's very true. I think it's an interesting question to think about, just because you're 100% right. If I know what would be the answer to that, but
I mean, the same I think is true just in microcosm in the media landscape of the industry. There are publications for the real estate part. There are podcasts for general interest, specific interest, all these things. But there doesn't seem to be a media brand that has a magazine and the ear of the 75-year-old CEO and the 27-year-old front desk manager. Do you know what I mean? It's mysterious.
Yeah. You wouldn't say like Skift or Focus Wire would be like more?
I think those are both great publications. I mean, if we really want to get into it, they don't ever put anyone on the cover of a magazine. And that is a big trophy for a lot of those guys, right? So I think that's one thing. I think there's not a full adoption of Skift and Focus Wire, maybe at all of the levels of our industry, for sure. I mean, I've had people tell me, like, why would I be on a podcast? Like, they just,
Yeah.
It's a lot of old people. I say this as a emerging old person myself, but I mean, come on, y'all.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on podcasting now that we've obviously kind of covered your story and a little bit of ours and stuff like that? Like, what would you say is the state of the industry in terms of podcasts? Do you think there's too many? I'm curious. I don't
think there are too many. I don't think there's ever too many, because this medium is as much about your sort of connection with the host or the person delivering as it is with the guests and the format, right? So, I'm not for everybody, you're not for everybody, but there is somebody for each of us. Do you know what I mean? So, I would love for there to be more podcasts. But I would like for there to be fewer that put out 10 episodes and stop. Or I would also like for there to be fewer that put out an episode 1 week and then wait for another 6 weeks and then put out 4 at the same time. Like, more consistent, great content. There's room for everybody.
Interesting take. I agree with you on consistency. It's the number one thing that makes your podcast successful.
100%.
There's no algorithms on Apple and Spotify podcasts. So you really got to stick to that publishing schedule or else you'll get buried.
We should talk about this, though. This is one of the things that I think is so wackadoodle-do about podcasting that I didn't understand before I started. And that is how difficult it is to get data, to get stats. Like, this is a digital medium theoretically, but people can make up how many people listen to their show. There's no way to check. It's wild to me.
Yeah, it's crazy because you look at YouTube, right? Everything's public. You can see per video, per month, or per channel. For the most part, on that kind of level, right? It's pretty transparent. You could tell when someone's fluffing numbers or if they're...
That's another good pro in the pro column for adding video. I'm thinking about that. I don't know if I want to, though. We edit the show a lot. And so I'm nervous that the video would then look like it was a dubbed movie, like... Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, especially with the edits that you guys make from an hour recording down to a 30-minute broadcasted episode. I think yes, but I don't know. I think YouTube's playing with, I don't know if they figured it out, but YouTube's playing with this where they can pull your audio onto the platform rather than doing video. So you still get that distribution.
We did that at first, and we would just put up the photograph of whoever was talking and just flip it back and forth. But I stopped doing it. I don't know why exactly. I just did.
Yeah, it's also one of those things, like, if you know people aren't watching and they're listeing, why spend the extra effort and just like give them what they want and save yourself some time, right? I don't know. So it's a hard balance in the term of media and content and what to do. Because I thought about it. I was like, man, should this show go to just audio again? the video is great for, like I said, social media and all the kind of things you do to market it. But at the end of the day, like, do we need to have video? I don't know.
I mean, I listened to a show called Grow the Show. Do you ever listen to that?
Oh yeah,
it's great.
With Michael.
I can't remember.
Or not Michael. Yeah, that's gonna. I know. I've met him at a podcast conference. Yeah,
the famous host that we love.
Yeah,
I really do. I think his content is great. But the thing that he talked about, or that he talks about often, is if you want someone to listen to your podcast, be on a podcast. Because you're talking to people who already know how to work it, right? Like who already know how to find a show and listen to it.
True.
Versus, a major, I don't know, Instagram campaign or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of interesting.
For sure.
But who knows? Because we have no data. So there's no clue. We have no clue where these people are coming from. They're just here. We're happy to have them.
Yes. I told this to Steve. I was like, I honestly could start so many businesses for the podcast industry because of how many things there are kind of behind the scenes that you're just like, man, the data could be better. I could sell better sponsorships and I can know my listener better so I can create better content and get better marketing and better this and better that. But no, again, here we are behind the mic instead of building the technology that makes it all fixed. It's fun. There's tons of things for the listeners. If you ever want to get into podcasting, trust us, we could geek out forever. But I would love to know, just in the turn, you said something that I've been feeling on our pre-call that it's been kind of in my head, not just from the pre-call, but just in general. And I think
I've been haunting you.
You've been haunting me for weeks, Susan.
I figured.
No, not at all. But in terms of like the essence of hospitality has been missing since COVID is what something that you said on our pre-chat. There's no true like joy of like talking to a wait staff or front desk agent. Everyone's just kind of like, here's your key, here's your food, get in, get out, leave me alone, let me do my job. Do you think we'll get the essence of hospitality back?
I do. I absolutely do. And I am the proof of that. For
I love it.
5 years, I wanted to socialize as much as I wanted to eat a worm sandwich, i.e. not at all. I was like homebody, maybe a few things here or there. And I'm typically a pretty social person. And we used to have parties at our house all the time and all this stuff. And I just got this feeling like, I was like, oh, I don't want to be around people. I feel weird. And, obviously some of it was for a reason. And then some of it was maybe a hangover from that pandemic. But I find myself, Will Slickers, emerging from that hermit shell. And so I have to believe that if that can happen for me, that can happen across everybody. I think there's probably a lag and a hangover that we're not agnowledging. We can't afford to acknowledge it, right? Because we got to get back to work and get back to business. But also, we've never been through something like this before. So how would we know to expect that? Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, I definitely get it. And I'm more or less curious for a couple of reasons. But the first question I have for you with that is, have you read the book Setting the Table by Danny Meyer?
Yes, I love that book. Love it. So love it.
Yes. So if you love it, then you remember the part where he talks about the like customer service like era, like 2009, 2010, give or take, I think, after the economic crash, where it was like the society, especially in America, said no longer is this acceptable for customer service, where I have to wait on hold for an hour, where the person I'm talking to is rude, or the bank teller at my bank doesn't pull up a conversation with me while I'm withdrawing money or depositing a check, et cetera, et cetera. And he talks about like the customer service era or boom that happened after the crash, where every company from corporate America down to every startup had to basically add hospitality into their business. They had to increase their customer service kind of expectations, their delivery, the way they communicated, everything had to change. And because that was what the customer was demanding, the customers were saying, this is enough. I'm paying X amount of dollars. I want this in return on top of a good product. And so now I'm curious, do you think we're kind of in that age of, I guess, a hospitality era where it's okay, the hospitality was say my name 3 times at check-in, make sure that my room is clean, like blah, 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 table stakes, all very basic minimum, have a smile, say, yeah, whatever. Now people want more. They want to feel connected. They want to feel personal. They want to feel like it's not just another booking, not just another check-in, not just another dinner reservation that they're trying to turn the table for. I feel like we're in that kind of like second coming of that customer service era, because I know I want more. I want like I go out, I travel. I see the airline person who's rude. I see everyone grumpy and hating their job. You walk into a hotel these days. I was doing a hotel tour for an event that we're doing. Sorry to ramble and talk too much, Susan, but no. We're doing a hotel tour. All 3 hotels I walk into, that one was a brand new hotel, should have perky, happy staff.
Recently grumpy, trained, very recently trained, yes.
Yeah. Grumpy, disheveled, hair was a mess, body odor, and not just one person. It was like every employee I like ran into.
Maybe that's part of their brand, Will.
It was a courtyard. So I don't know. But anyways, I just feel like you're getting such, I don't know. I don't know what the point I'm trying to say is. I just feel like maybe the industry got so burnt and tired and worn out during this like last 4 or 5 year era. But I think the customers are shifting. They want more, and it's time to get it, like you said, like get out of that hangover that we're in. Maybe, and it's time to get back. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I have a couple of thoughts. I'm not sure that I have something that's going to be super well articulated, but I did interview someone who has an entire book about this that's excellent. His name is Steve Fortunato, and he talks about having a host mentality versus like having a service mentality, which I think is interesting. I think that you're going to have to hang in here with me for a second. Okay, so you've heard...
You just listen to me ramble all of that. So
the pleasure was mine. So you hear people talk about the servant's heart or a heart of service. That has always rubbed me the wrong way, because I feel like there is a subservience built into that idea that is inappropriate. When I heard from Steve this idea about a host mentality or host's heart, that feels more right on to me, which is, I'm not here to serve you. I'm here to host you. I'm here to welcome you and make you feel like you belong. You can sit with us, like that kind of idea. So that's part one. Part two is getting back to something that you said about this sort of era of the increase in customer service, which is I believe we're experiencing a somewhat of a backlash to this now. And this, again, is part of my conversation with Steve. I just want to give him credit because I didn't come up with this all by myself. And it is this idea that we went from the customer always being right to now the chef is always right, or the entity, the business is always right. And the best example of this is when a server comes to your table and says, have you dined with us before? Let me instruct you on how to order from our menu. I'm sorry, come again? I want to order the way that I'm here to, like, I'm not here for class.
Yeah.
So there's that piece, like this sort of pendulum swing, right? Of customers always right, customers certainly not always right, but is the chef always right? Maybe not. Then there's the practical pieces that I think are easy to sort of like glide by because we're like, time's a ticking, buddy, we got to move on. And that is, how many people did we lose during the pandemic to gig work who needed to be able to make their own schedules, pick up shifts when they wanted to, make more money, all of those things? Are we starting over in hospitality without anywhere close to the resources that we put against helping people learn how to do their jobs? And let me tell you, this industry has never been famous for like excellent training programs. I've never met anyone who was like, well, I started my assistant GM position with all the tools I needed, having learned everything I needed to know. Absolutely not. Every single person is on the job training. Like, you get thrown into it, you figure it out, and you make it happen. So that's the baseline. We're way worse than that right now because we lost so many
100%.
people. I just feel like there's a lot of factors, but it does feel like things aren't right. And I told you I was an emerging old person, right? So there's some stuff that I think about that I'm like, man, nobody's been telling anybody this, like picking up trash when you're walking across the property, or the 10 and 5 rule, or do you know, like some of those very basic concepts I don't think exist anymore. What do you think?
100%. I still pick up trash when I walk.
It's so embarrassing.
100%, 100%. But you're 100% right. The basics, the initial, like I remember getting taught that like day one, where it's just like, hey, if the lobby's dead and you don't have a check-in or a line of guests, guess what? If you see that the little table, dining, sit-down lounge area in the lobby is dirty, you go clean it up. You put the dishes back. You throw the trash away. You do wipe down the table. You do that thing. You make the place presentable. You have pride in the job.
Yes, but there's some interesting tension there too, because I interview a lot of executives, obviously, as do you. And one of the things that they often say is the key to success in hospitality is being flexible and being willing to do whatever it takes. Well, being asked to do whatever it takes might mean that you are being taken advantage of, that you're not getting paid enough for your job, or you are making it possible for the business to not fully staff because you're patching it together with, Band-Aids and popsicle sticks or whatever. So that tension is not simple, I don't think. I don't think it's just like, they get back to basics, everything will be great, guys. But I also don't think, being inflexible is the way either.
Yeah. Well, I'll counter this with a fun little, we can kind of have a little back and forth on this one. I would love to know your thoughts. Who was I talking to? It was Jeff Lowe. And shout out to Jeff from Stash Hotels. They're a great company. He was a great guest. I loved our conversation. And I believe he said this, people don't care, like, saying someone's name 3 times at check-in no longer like should be like that standard practice, right? Like,
no, it's creepy. Ugh.
But this is where my the act of doing it or the practice of doing it is still a good thing, because you're still thinking about the other person. You're actively acknowledging your guests in your own head. You're not just like waiting for people to walk up to the desk where you're grumpy with your head down at the keyboard.
Click, click.
Yeah, click. Yeah, not make phone, or can I get your ID and
date of birth,
debit or credit card, please, and all that good stuff. So I think like the intention behind these things are good, right? Like the intention of picking up the trash when you're walking the hotel, the intention of saying the guest name 3 times, the practice of doing what it takes as a team. But like, that's where you're 100% right. Like, you have to know where's that line? Does that line of doing whatever it takes mean I, get taken advantage of? Does this mean I put myself in safety or safe, like harm's way type stuff? So, there's a lot of ways, but I think the practice of it, we've gotten away from. So people no longer, like you saying my name, Will Slickers, on the podcast, so it makes me smile, because it's like, oh, you're saying my name. Like,
plus you just have a cool name. It's fun to say, Will Slickers.
Thanks, Susan Berry. But I think it's just like the act of it. It makes some, I don't know. I'm rambling now because
I totally get where you're coming from. If the goal is 3 and you hit it once, that's better than hitting it none at all. I think there's the desire. My guess is that the people who make those rules wish that they could make it be flexible and freedom within this framework, but have seen over time that if they don't say it 3 times, then somebody who says it 0 times can't be corrected. Maybe?
Agreed. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just more of like, I think, to go back to the basics, the comments is the reason why I said it was just because, like, I think sometimes the basics help us come back to that. Like, okay, this is broken. The industry is not the way it is. Things aren't right. But if I come back to, remembering to be personal and just say Susan's name, even if it's once, I don't have to say it 3 times. Just say her name. If I pick up that trash, if I clean up that lobby, if I in an actively engaged tone, and not a hello, how are you, but like, hey, like, love that outfit today, like to a guest or to a coworker or to whatever, right? Like to just encourage that practice. I think it hopefully can like start to ripple that hospitality love effect it kind of has. But I don't know. That's just my hopeful wishful thinking.
Everything I know I've learned from my guests, and I have another book that I want to recommend. It's called The Impact Hospitality Handbook. It was written by Dante Johnson and Jason Bass. Dante is a GM and Jason is a director of culture, and they are now at their second hotel as a team. And the thing that they talk about is that the way that they, and this sounds so cliche, but they are way better at explaining it than me, so read their book. The way that they treat their teams makes it very obvious how the teams should be treating the guests. It's maybe an oldie but a goodie that if you take care of your team will take care of the guests.
Yeah, you got to take care of your own house first before you go to take care of somebody else's, or water your own grass before you think it's greener on the other side.
Put your oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on others. We could say 1,000 of these for sure.
All day. I love it. Susan, I had more questions kind of like outlined for you in terms of the podcast. So I'm going to do kind of a quick rapid fire.
Okay.
If you're cool with that. How do you come up with your business, or not your business, sorry, your podcast titles?
The title of every episode comes from the loading dock story. So the last thing we do before we wrap up an episode is invite our guests to tell their craziest, weirdest, wildest, funniest story. And I pick the title based on that story.
Good to know, because I was listening. I told you this morning, I was listening to a couple episodes to prepare and to see if I could pick up any cool things to ask you. And the episode I was listening to that caught my attention was Bad Business Bullets. And I was like, how did she come up with this name? Because I was like, it has no, like, I always tell people like use the word hospitality or STR or like whatever your topic is for like SEO purposes. But I was looking at yours and I was like, she's got some great titles, and it's not, I don't think like quote unquote benefit of SEO, but it's benefit of curiosity.
Listen,
that gets me to click play.
I do the opposite of what people should do. The goal should be to be clear, not clever, but I have to have some fun in this whole process. And so I choose to be clever, not clear on the episode titles.
And I love that for you, because that leads to my next question. I've said this on the show. I've asked other podcasters. You made a comment that Top Floor is not full-time for you. Hive Marketing is full-time, is what you do. If it were full-time, would you be worried that you would hate it because it is now a job instead of a hobby or a passion project?
I don't think so at this point. I think if I were only a year in, then I might be nervous, but I'm almost to I'm in year 4 now. Is that right?
Yeah. If you start in 2021, yeah.
Okay. Math. I was an English major, FYI. And so the fact that I have been able to stick with it, we're an always on weekly show, no seasons, no holidays, no breaks, lets me know that there's a reason that I keep doing it, even when I have a million other things to do. I would love to do it full time.
I love it. And what do you love the most about the show or podcasting?
The guests that I get to meet, and really feeling like I connect with and get to know the people that I'm interviewing. And honestly, like full red nerd alert, but I love learning stuff, and I learn so much from my guests.
100%. Do you have a moment from whenever in the last 4 years that you were like, yes, I'm so glad I did this? Like where just like you sat back and you were able to say like, Top Floor, I'm so thankful. The idea, the timing, the people, all of it came together. Was there a specific moment?
Oh, there's been so many. I'm thinking about one Hunter conference in particular where it just felt like all of my stars were aligned that 2-day period. Like I saw people from 20 years before, and it just felt like, and I've got a lot of positive feedback, and that really felt like that song from Wicked, Popular.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what is happening? People are being so nice to me. Am I about to die? Like, what's going on? So that was one. And then I was really excited to crack the top 10 in the top podcast list this year. That was exciting.
Yes. Shout out to Dr. Jeffrey O and the International Hospitality Institute for creating that fun list. It was it's always fun to like see you and like Sarah Dandishy and Steve Turk and Josiah and Glenn and Anthony, and you get to see everybody just like
all our pals.
We're all hanging out. We're all hanging on this list, So shout out to shout out to
listen, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'll probably be not even on the list next year, but it was fun to see it this year.
Once you're on the list you're on the list every year. Come on.
As long as you keep consistently putting out episodes.
It's true. I actually we did it. Fun fact. I promise I'll shut up after this, but we looked at all the shows that on our network that got on that list. And I was like, okay, great. Let's look at the shows that were on the list before. And let's see the shows that aren't on that list. And let's see who's published or been consistent on like publishing, just to see. All the ones that weren't on the list were not consistent in publishing. So that's one sign.
It's the key. It's also the key with LinkedIn content, everything. Consistency matters more than quality.
100%.
Fortunately for you and I, we have both.
Yes. Quality, consistency is always king. And Susan, speaking of LinkedIn, to give you the final question, my famous kind of final question I always give everybody is like, if you had one link to send everybody, where would you send them? We're going to put all the links in. But you and I talked about something pre-recording, and then you also just said it, with LinkedIn content. So I want to make sure we give you a shameless shout out for your LinkedIn content made easy formula. So I would
thank
love
you.
to see where can people learn about creating consistent and good LinkedIn content?
Well, the link to that is hive-marketing.com. And then it's a terrible URL because I didn't know I was going to have to say it out loud. So LinkedIn-content-made-easy, the longest URL that has ever been pronounced on this show just happened, ladies and gentlemen. But I did make a discount code for your listeners. So if they want to buy this, the code is SLICK50.
SLICK50. Well, you heard it here first, Slick Talkers. No, I love it. I remember we were talking about it, and I was like, oh, that'd be such a great thing, like a topic to go down. And then here we are an hour later, and basically not talked about it. And so I just want to make sure just go check it out. This is for company pages specifically. So it's for businesses or startups or, one-woman shows that need to put out consistent content on LinkedIn, but are struggling to do it. This is just a great workbook, calendar, templates, formula, and explanation of how to do it, how to make it easy. I love it. And for the slick talkers out there, grab that code, grab that link, grab the show notes, and go get it, because we want to show Susan the same love she shows us. And thank you. Just, say a thank you for being on the show. And then, of course, all the other links for Susan are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you like and subscribe to all things Top Floor, Susan Berry, Hive Marketing, you name it. Go like and subscribe it. Susan, I'm so honored to have you on the show. And thank you so much for
I'm so honored.
I can't believe it took us 4 years to get to this point, but we finally did it. Better late than never,
Absolutely.
So, keep crushing it. I'm such a big fan of your show. You're such a great voice in the industry, and couldn't be happier to know you.
Wow, the pleasure is truly mine, Will. And now it's your turn to join me at the top floor. So stay tuned, everybody.
I love it. All right, Slick Talkers, you heard it here first. Like and subscribe to all things Top Floor, Hive Marketing, and Susan Berry in the link in the show notes. And of course, like always, see you guys again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.